Hello and welcome to Dining with Death. This episode is on our playlist, Dining with the Departed, where we talk about famous and infamous people, their careers, what they're famous for, and we eat their favorite foods. I'm Stacey Lee. Let's begin. I have to start this episode by saying I had a really hard time deciding whether or not to do it because, frankly, I think I'm going to have a hard time getting through it. I know I am not alone in saying I was strangely, deeply affected by Anthony Bourdain's suicide. His death had a really deep and long-lasting effect on me, and I know from talking to other people that I am far from the only person that feels that way. Of course, it's a tragedy when anyone decides to end their life, but there was something about him that made us all feel like we knew him. There was something so special about him. He was dark and cynical one minute and kind of full of wonder and awe the next minute. He was smart, man, was he smart, and he was cool. He was kind of the bad boy rock star of the chef world, and he always felt like he was like your rad uncle or like your cool friend from school that you hadn't seen in a long time, but you could pick right back up where you left off and start talking again like it had been yesterday. But the thing I loved and admired the most about him was that he was a truth teller. He didn't care who he pissed off or who he made mad with his strong opinions and his passionate stance on things. You were getting the truth from him no matter what. He enjoyed his solitude, and he often rubbed people the wrong way. The people that know me are laughing right now because I've just described myself. I am an admitted hermit, and I am also known as a teller of unpopular truths and opinions in my neck of the woods, and I am not bothered about that. I felt a real kinship with this man, and I think a lot of us did, and that is a rare and beautiful gift. So I'm going to try to get through this, and I hope I do justice to one of my greatest influences and role models ever. Anthony Michael Bourdain was born in New York City on June 25, 1956, to Gladys and Pierre Bourdain. His father was a non-practicing Catholic, and his mother was technically Jewish, but Anthony often said he'd never even been in a synagogue and considered himself an atheist. Anthony's father grew up spending his time between the States and France, and he spoke fluent French as well. Anthony himself spent most of his childhood in Leonia, New Jersey, and he loved to go to the movies. But after the movies, what he really loved was to go to the local restaurants and sit with his friends and discuss the movies. He says his love of food was first kindled on a trip to France when he tasted a fresh oyster on a fishing boat. He attended Dwight Englewood School in Englewood, New Jersey, and then Vassar College, but he dropped out after 2 years. He married his high school girlfriend, Nancy Bukowski, in 1985, and they remained married for 2 decades, divorcing in 2005. They did not have any children. Anthony had been working in seafood restaurants in Provincetown, Massachusetts during college, and he decided that that's what he wanted to make a living doing, cooking full-time. He then attended the Culinary Institute of America, and he graduated in 1978. He worked various kitchen jobs and ran the kitchens at Supper Club, 1 Fifth Avenue, and Sullivan's. All of those are in New York. And in 1988, he landed the executive chef position at Brasserie Leal in Manhattan. He stayed there for many, many years, even returning back there for stints when he became a famous TV host. Anthony Bourdain has been very open and honest about the fact that he was a drug user for many years. He used pretty much anything he could get his hands on, and those of you like myself that have spent years in the restaurant industry, you know that that is quite common. He was a very heavy smoker, 2 packs a day, clear until 2007 when he did finally quit. But if you need any extra motivation not to smoke, it ruins your palate, so don't do it. While he was working at Brasserie, he began submitting works of fiction. He liked to write, and he thought he was pretty good at it. Finally, this publication called Between C and D, which is a Lower East Side New York publication, picked up an article of his. It was about a chef who was trying to purchase heroin in the Lower East Side, so somewhat autobiographical. He then attended a writing workshop in 1990 and got his first book advance. His first book was a culinary mystery called A Bone in the Throat that he wrote for Random House. It was published in 1995 and he had to pay for his own book tour. It did not receive any success, but he didn't give up. He wrote a second book called Gone Bamboo, which also did pretty poorly. But then came the book that changed not only his life, but the culinary scene. Kitchen Confidential: Adventures in the Culinary Underbelly was his big hit. It was released in 2000 and it became a New York Times bestseller. It is a non-fiction memoir and behind-the-scenes look at restaurant kitchens, which Bourdain describes accurately, I might add, as intense, dangerous, unpleasant places staffed by what he calls misfits. I would completely agree with that. He also wrote books called A Cook's Tour, The Nasty Bits, Medium Raw, A Bloody Valentine to the World of Food and the People Who Cook, Typhoid Mary, An Urban Historical, and No Reservations: Around the World on an Empty Stomach. He continued to write articles and essays for The New Yorker, The New York Times, The Times of London, and many other publications. So in 2002, Bourdain's career as a full-time chef came to an end and he became a TV host. He described his job like this: I travel around the world, eat a lot of and basically do whatever the I want. Yeah, that sounds just perfectly on par for him. His first show was called A Cook's Tour, and it appeared on the Food Network. It premiered in January of 2002 and ran for 35 episodes through 2003. But Bourdain was never really at home on the Food Network, and he felt stifled by the format, and he kind of started to look for other options. In July of 2005, he struck a deal with the Travel Channel, and they created Anthony Bourdain: No Reservations. Can you hear it in your head?
No reservations.
The memories. This show is where the world fell in love with Anthony Bourdain. The chef took us deep into areas that most people never see. He didn't just travel, he immersed himself. He despised touristy locations, and he was not afraid to say that. He wandered through street markets and hole-in-the-wall restaurants that only locals frequent. He went into people's homes and private places to show us the true culture of the people that live in the areas that he traveled to. And he didn't just show us these places, we lived these places through him. Those of you that love him like I do, you know what I'm talking about. We experienced these places through his eyes and through his words. He had a real gift as a storyteller, and he made you feel like you were there with him. The show featured fabulous camera work, stunning scenery, and his colorful narration. You just felt like you were right in the thick of it with him. You could see everything he was seeing, you could hear what he was hearing, smell what he was smelling. He was really good at describing smells, and you could taste the food that he was tasting. He was just a fantastic host. His true and genuine love for the people he met and the culture they lived in and preserved shined through his crusty exterior as he shared with us the many wonderful foods and people and places he sampled. There was even a short-lived scripted TV show called Kitchen Confidential, which aired on Fox in 2005. The lead character was loosely based on Anthony Bourdain. He was called Jack Bourdain. Anthony is said to not have been a huge fan of the show, which is no surprise. In July of 2006, while filming in Beirut, the Israel-Lebanon conflict broke out and the crew had to wait out rioting and then escape, aided by a fixer that Bourdain dubbed Mr. Wolf, after Harvey Keitel's character in Pulp Fiction. Bourdain and his crew were evacuated in July by the Marines, and the episode was nominated for an Emmy in 2007. Also in 2007, he married Octavia Busia, and their daughter, Ariane, was born that same year. She is Bourdain's only child. Bourdain was given a second show on the Travel Channel called The Layover. I'm sure you remember this show. Each episode featured Bourdain exploring a city during an airport layover of 24 to 48 hours. I liked this show a lot. We got to see kind of a quick version of No Reservations, and because Anthony was a little bit limited in his time, he was forced to visit some kind of more touristy locations that he really didn't like, and we got to see kind of the unedited version of his opinion sometimes, which was of course the best. In May of 2012, Bourdain announced his departure from the Travel Channel. New ownership had come in, and Bourdain had no problem, in usual fashion, expressing his frustration with the new ownership. He felt they were trying to turn him into a pitchman, and he was not having it. He made a deal with CNN, and his new baby, Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown, was born. This show was an even deeper dive into lesser-known places, cultures, and cuisines. It won 12 Primetime Emmys out of 31 nominations. That's incredible. 31 nominations is incredible, and to win 12 times is really an accomplishment. He was at the peak of his career, of any travel culinary career. This show, meaning Parts Unknown, is probably my favorite of the bunch because I feel like Bourdain had really hit his stride at this point. His writing was razor sharp, his humor was biting and honest, and his narration was just as colorful and vibrant and alive as ever. He took us everywhere from Myanmar to Africa to Detroit to Peru, India, Las Vegas, Vietnam, one of his favorite places, Madagascar. Anyway, you really need to watch this show if you haven't. It's fantastic. He even goes to his childhood home state with his brother, and he goes back to Hiram's where he used to eat fried hot dogs. That episode, I'm getting all verklempt. It's very sweet. Just do yourself a favor and watch Parts Unknown. You have to especially seek out the episode with Marco Pierre White, who is my personal culinary hero. He goes to the English countryside with Marco Pierre White, and that episode changed the way I think about food forever. It is, those of you that have seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Just watch it. I have to admit, I have never seen the last season of Parts Unknown. I have watched the other seasons over and over, I don't know how many times, but I cannot bring myself to watch the last season, which he was filming when he died. It's almost like if I don't watch it, sorry, he's still alive somewhere, you know. Later in his life, Bourdain became very interested in mixed martial arts. His wife, Otavia, was a mixed martial artist, and Bourdain began practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and earned a blue belt in August of 2015. Like I said, he had quit smoking in 2007 and was really fit. He was working out, probably in the best shape physically of his adult life. He won gold at the IBJJF in New York in 2016 in the middleweight Master 5, 51 and older division. He and his wife amicably separated in 2016, and he began dating Asia Argento, an actress that he met while filming Parts Unknown, and he was with her until his death. Anthony Bourdain's public persona has been likened to that of Hunter S. Thompson. He was kind of nihilistic at times, and then he was just filled with wonder and awe and amazement of how incredible the world was and how incredible people were and culture and food. He was really a walking contradiction at times. He used profanity liberally and loved a good sexual innuendo. A man after my own heart. He loved trying any and all exotic specialty dishes like insects and sheep testicles, blood sausages, seal eyeballs, and fermented shark. Yet he said he wouldn't touch airline food, and once said a chicken McNugget was the most disgusting thing he ever ate. He routinely insulted fellow celebrity chefs like Rachel Ray, Sandra Lee, Paula Deen, and Guy Fieri, and even Bobby Flay and Emeril Lagasse, who he did eventually reconcile with. But he was always just as outspoken for his praise of the people that he respected as he was for ribbing those that he might not have. He greatly admired Marco Pierre White, who, like I said, is the person I personally patterned my career after, Thomas Keller and Eric Ripert. He also spoke very highly of Julia Child's influence in the culinary world and on him personally. Bourdain was infamous for his comments about vegans and vegetarians, especially activists from both groups, and he stated he found them rude to the inhabitants of the countries that he visited. I just recently got in trouble for offending vegans and vegetarians. I didn't mean to. I really didn't. It's a discipline thing. I respect it. I didn't mean to. He kind of considered veganism a first world luxury and called it a spoiled American pastime. But he also believed Americans eat too much meat and said he respected when he did see vegetarians and vegans eat meat in other countries when they were fed it by their hosts. Like I said, he was kind of a walking contradiction. Bourdain was a big fan of the Ramones, as well as other early punk bands like the Dead Boys and the Voidoids. He said playing Billy Joel, Elton John, or the Grateful Dead in his kitchen was grounds for firing. But Billy Joel was actually a big fan of Bourdain's. I love that. I also love Billy Joel, so there you go. In 2018, Anthony Bourdain was filming an episode of Parts Unknown in Strasbourg with his friend and frequent collaborator Eric Ripert. They spent the day of June 7th together, and on June 8th, Ripert became worried about Bourdain because he had missed dinner the evening before and then breakfast that morning. He went to Bourdain's hotel room at Le Chambard Hotel in Kaisersberg, where he found his friend dead of an apparent suicide by hanging. Sometime after the pair had parted the previous day, Bourdain returned to his hotel room and took his own life. The body did not show signs of violence, and it appeared to be an impulsive act using an implement readily available to him. Bourdain had openly discussed his battle with depression, his substance abuse, and his personal demons, but his death came as a shock to everyone who knew him and to everyone who did not. I can only speak for myself in saying how I was affected, but I am confident because of the many other chefs that I've spoken with, and even in the chefs forums that I'm in online, in saying how great a loss this was for so many people and how deeply it affected so many of us that didn't even know him. He was just so tough on the outside, you know, so crusty and so curmudgeonly, and sometimes I think maybe those are the people we need to worry about a little bit more. He always saw the world the way that it was, never with rose-colored glasses, and maybe that was it. Maybe he had just seen so much that he had seen enough. Maybe he had just had the best day of his life and figured it would never get any better than that. I guess we will never know. But the fact remains, he's gone. I feel for his family, I feel for his daughter, I feel for the world, because we lost one of the greatest writers, travelers, and lovers of people we will ever know. Gather myself. Oof. Anthony Bourdain loved meat. He called himself a committed carnivore. He especially loved ribs, suckling pig, all things pork, bacon, a great steak, and he loved a good hot dog. But when I think of Anthony Bourdain, I think of his love of Asia, specifically Tokyo. And I remember one of his favorite episodes, just watching him inhale this giant bowl of spicy yakisoba noodles, like, you know, kind of tears coming out of his eyes, and he was just so happy. And then when I was doing research for this episode, I found a quote where he said, "I'm going to pretty much die in the saddle." But anytime I'm eating a bowl of spicy noodles, I'm happiest. Oh, I told you I was going to have a hard time with this one. So today we are going to taste a big bowl of spicy noodles in honor of my very favorite world traveler and snarky chef, Anthony Bourdain. Okay. A big bowl of yakisoba noodles. Yakisoba noodles are buckwheat noodles. And I was going to go into this whole thing about noodles and kind of the history, and I think I just want to sit here and taste these and think about our favorite chef. My favorite chef. I'm sure he's many of yours. I can definitely see why he loved them. I love noodles. They're my go-to comfort food. I'll eat any kind of noodles, anytime, anywhere. They are my absolute favorite. Anthony Bourdain also loved shellfish. So I got shrimp. I'm remembering the episode that I thought about when I was deciding what to get to eat, and he just looked so happy with that big bowl of noodles. I don't know, it just really struck a chord with me because I guess that's how I feel when I eat noodles. Yep. Well, Chef, here's to you. I hope you're eating all the spicy noodles all the time, wherever you are. Thank you for joining me today on Dining with Death, Dining with the Departed. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Stay safe, be kind to each other, and I'll see you next time on Dining with Death. Bye.